I've said this, and I've been sort of leaking more of this out on Twitter that the organization views him differently than I think a lot of fans did at the start of the year, and I don't think they wanted to get too ahead of themselves. But we're seeing this start to manifest, to use Jaime's favorite word, as we've gone forward here, which is that this is not just a plug and play role player like that. And I don't know that we thought that that's what he was always going to be, but that was kind of the benefit to taking a 22-year-old in the draft, is that he can be ready to play right away, and he could give you some wing protection behind Jimmy. And then obviously we saw Josh and Caleb get off to slow starts this season, in part because of injury. But the minutes are telling a different story here right now, which is that Spoelstra is not taking him out, not only not taking him out of the rotation, which is not even a question at this point, but I don't think he's taking him out of the core minute rotation. So the Heat always talk in terms of who do they have available for Spo to close with. They don't care so much about the starters. We fixate on the starters. They care about the finishers. And the whole idea is to give him 6 to 7 viable options that he can close with. And he has obviously decided at this point that Jaquez is one of them. Now, this is reminiscent a little bit of Hero in his rookie season, where he started to play the entire fourth quarter. We've seen this with Strus, where he started to trust him in the fourth quarters. But the difference between Jaime and Max, and they did view Jaime as a bit of a replacement for Max, is that you can trust Jaime defensively against everybody late in games. Whereas with Max, he tried, but there were some limitations there. And a lot of times too, although Max had a little bit more to his game than just the shot, if the shot wasn't going, he wasn't providing much production for you. With Jaime, that's not the case. The shot is kind of the last thing to come now, and you see him there making the corner three. So I think he's going to be a permanent closing option for this team, even when Tyler's back. And that raises interesting questions because, you have at least 7 options late in games. They could go to a core defensive lineup where Highsmith's in there. We thought Caleb might be in the mix. I think it's going to take him a little bit more time. We thought Josh might be in the mix, but I think Spo is on to the limitations of that in terms of just some of the stuff that Josh does late in games can hurt you. So even though I think he likes him defensively, I don't know that I'll necessarily go to him. So I think, honestly, beyond their so-called big three, once Tyler is back, I think Jaime is right there as their 4th or 5th option to close. And I think he's going to be in a lot of those lineups. The other thing he provides is the ability to take Lowry off the floor, because they have shown that they're willing to use Jaquez as a pick and roll ball handler. We saw that in the preseason game at home, the one that everybody was focused on Swider. I was more focused on Jaime. The fact that they were putting the ball in his hands to make plays, and he did. There was an Orlando Robinson putback in that game, but that was a result of Jaime's rim pressure and creation. So he gives you something that the others don't give you. And I keep saying this on the podcast. Every 2 weeks to 3 weeks, we're going to look back at what he did 2 to 3 weeks earlier, which we thought was pretty remarkable at the time, and say he's beyond that now. The growth when you have a good rookie who knows he can play and the game slows down for him, there's really not there's really not a ceiling to what I think the Heat will allow that player to do. I know that there's been a perception here that Spo won't play rookies. It's just not true. Mario Chalmers started 82 games as a rookie in 2008. Beasley started even though Spo really didn't think he was ready, and he actually put Haslam on the bench to do it. For those who don't remember, UD moved aside for Bees, the number 2 overall pick. It's just that Bees couldn't keep himself in the lineup because eventually his defensive, brain farts basically pushed him out. But he has been willing to play rookies. He played Norris Cole as a rookie on a championship contending team that ended up winning the championship. He was playing him between 15 to 25 minutes per game. I want to actually get Norris on the podcast to discuss that specifically. And he played Justice and Josh off the bench in 2015 as essentially their 6th or 7th best players in terms of, or core players in terms of minutes. So once somebody earns his trust, it's hard for that player to lose the trust. And so I think he's going to continue to play. All right. Well, while we're waiting for the stream here, I'll try to take some questions. Charlie, you got something, or you want me to throw it up?
No, I'm working on it. I'll try to do it before we did it, but just continue talking. I get it.
Oh, okay. K-Tech, does Duncan or Kyle get benched for Tyler? I think Duncan gets benched for Tyler. I understand what the lineups look like. I understand the way that Duncan is playing, and everything from efficiency to the ball handling to the playmaking. Now the shooting has come to that kind of level, and the foul rate is down, which is something that I've mentioned quite a few times here. But Tyler's the starting two. And the only thing I can see happening here is that he waits to put Tyler back in the starting lineup by saying essentially he's on a minutes restriction and he wants to get him up to speed. But it's an ankle injury. I don't think, look, Tyler hasn't been able to condition the way obviously that he would be if he's playing NBA games. But it's not like a hamstring situation. I don't think there'll be much of a minutes restriction to start. But he can, Spoelstra, if he wants to frame this that way, can make it a minutes restriction coming off the bench. And then there will be a game that the starting lineup struggles, and it will give him the opportunity. He's done this before, to then make the change to put Tyler back in the starting lineup. So Tyler's going to start. I know that Alex has thrown out the possibility of Tyler and Duncan starting together. The numbers on that lineup, no matter how well both are playing, and both are playing at a high level, have not typically been good. I understand that you can say, okay, we got Jimmy, Bam, and Highsmith in that lineup, and you can protect them. I don't think that's the best use of your resources. The best use of your resources might be Tyler Hero off the bench. They're not going to do that, not for any length of time. So I think Duncan goes to the bench. I think Kyle is the nominal starter for now. But now that you have so many other options, the chance of Kyle actually getting premium minutes down the stretch, I think, is significantly reduced. So yes, I know they combined for 60 off the bench versus Suns. There are specific games you can cite where they've played well together, but the overall metrics have not been terrific. All right. Okay. I thought we had the stream. All right. There we go. Back? No? Yay, no. Okay. Trey, what's the latest you think we see Tyler come back?
It's playing on my end. Try it on your end, Ethan.
I don't want to lose everybody in the process, though. Hold on.
They combined for 60 off the bench versus the Suns. I don't know, man. You know,
let's just forget it. I'll just keep going. Okay, what's the latest that you think we see Tyler come back? I did not think he would be back for this trip. Now he's on schedule. They're a little bit ahead of schedule. He got the boot off. We anticipated that would happen. He's not going to be playing in Cleveland. We know that. There's the 2 games in New York. He could make the trip up there. I know he also typically has some business in New York. So I wouldn't be surprised completely if he joins them up there. But I have targeted the game against Milwaukee as the most likely game that he's back. So I think, what is that? The 30th, right after they get back from this trip. That would be my guess in terms of when he comes back. From 21 Alex, is trading Kyle too much of a risk? The closer it gets to the playoffs, that $30 million could bring in better help. If they see a significant upgrade and they can get around having to trade the first, I think they will make a move with Kyle. I don't think that the money is necessarily going to be the thing that keeps them from doing it. Right now, though, there are so many teams that see themselves in the mix. By the way, is anybody seeing the stream? It's just distracting me, to be honest. All right. I don't. Sorry, I got lost. Yeah, let's just, Charles, just kill the streams completely. Obviously, we can't get it going today, so it's fine. I'll just take questions. So basically, I think most likely is Milwaukee. That was the question about Tyler. As far as Kyle goes, and the $30 million being to bring in better help, we have to see which teams are definitively out of postseason consideration. And then I think you'll see some teams start to make moves. A lot of these contracts can't even be traded until the middle of December. And so that's one thing to consider here. But I would look, for instance, at a team like Detroit. Okay. Um, they've fallen out of any type of contention this year. They obviously want to sink to the bottom at this stage. They've got a coach on a long term contract, so it's a long term plan, but the general manager might get blown out. Bogdanovich, Monte Morris, they're not playing right now. The team's losing. You're not going to force them back into the lineup to start winning games. Maybe you get them back out there just to show that they're healthy. I think that's a team to possibly look at. But when we talked about a team like Indiana, Indiana's better than advertised at this stage. So are they going to want to trade Heald and O'Connell, or are they going to want them around as depth if they try to make some kind of a playoff push? That's something else to consider. So I don't think teams are very close to making trades right now. I don't think anything happens, probably prior to Christmas. I think after Christmas, between them and the trade deadline, plus they've got the silly in-season tournament, all these other things going on. But the in-season tournament is going to get some general managers together in Vegas at least, so maybe a deal pops from that. But I would anticipate between Christmas and February 9th or whatever it is, we'll start to see some action there. Matt, our guy Matt, Hero, Butler, Robinson, Highsmith, Adebayo starting lineup. I wouldn't mind it. I'll say that. People know how I feel about the whole Kyle thing. They've been playing Jimmy a lot more kind of in the backcourt. He's not a guard, even though Kendrick Perkins put him at guard. I think Basketball Reference has him still at like 2% at guard this year. But they absolutely could play that lineup. Calling who's the two? Duncan, Butler, it doesn't really matter. Lowry leading the bench is the way that this should be going, but that's not what Kyle wants to do. So that's been the consideration from the very beginning. Hootie says it's going to be interesting to see how Spo works the lineups when everyone is healthy. Going to be some hard decisions to be made. I actually think it has set up for him okay because Caleb is struggling. The question is, how long does he want to give Caleb to get back into shape and get the rust off? That's the thing. And but there's an easier decision to be made now. Now that Josh has ramped up a little bit and shown some of his value, you can keep Caleb where he's at in his minutes or even scale them back a little bit and find a way to play everybody. The other thing is he made the decision I thought he was going to make earlier in the season than I thought he was going to make it. I always figured Love would go back to being backup 5. They like those lineups with Love and Jimmy together. And they like the space that Kevin provides. I didn't think it would happen quite this soon, that they would kind of shelve Thomas Bryant, but I thought they would shelve Thomas Bryant eventually. So that makes it easier too, because Thomas Bryant is accepted now. This role is kind of an extra big, not in the regular rotation. So there's really only one decision to be made, which is, does he go to 10? How does he split the minutes if he goes to 10? And if he doesn't go to 10 and he goes to 9, my guess is it's probably Caleb that loses the minutes right now. And, and then it's okay. Somebody's going to get hurt, and then Caleb will get another opportunity to get in. All right, throw some more questions out there. We're going streamless, so throw me what you got here. Tyler, Jaime, Jimmy, Bam, and who is the best 5? Comes in from Ray Mack. Duncan or Highsmith. I think it's situational. It's offense, defense. But I will say this. The connection between Jaime and Duncan has been pretty apparent both from eye test and the analytics at this stage. And so I think he's going to try to play the two of them as much as he can together. I did discuss that with Duncan, and he raved about the way that Jaquez cuts off the ball, which is a huge plus when you also have Duncan's gravity out there. So I do think you will see that lineup that you just mentioned out there, that Tyler, Duncan, Jaime, Jimmy, Bam lineup. I think you'll see some of it. But also, Jimmy likes playing with Highsmith. Bam likes playing with Highsmith. Highsmith's going to get his minutes. I don't think there's any question about that. Will Tyler adjust his game when he returns? He's on ball way too much. I think he will, Alex, when they're all out there together. But I think Spoelstra is going to try to get Tyler time. Remember Bosch time, where Bosch would be the featured player and LeBron and Dwayne would be out of there? I think that there's going to be more of an emphasis to get Tyler in there with the bench groups, Get him some reps with Jaquez. Get him some reps with Caleb. He's gotten him some reps with Josh. Get him out of Jimmy's way. I just, to me, the most that Tyler and Jimmy should be playing together is first 6 minutes of the first 6 minutes of the third, and closing 6 minutes. So 18 minutes. So if both guys are going to play about 32 or so minutes, and Tyler sometimes plays more, half of those minutes are going to be without each other. And in some of them, Tyler will have Bam, and in some of them, he won't. But I do think they need to get Tyler time so that he can do what he does best. I think this idea of turning Tyler into just purely a catch and shoot guy, which I know is what some fans want. They want him to play like Duncan to a certain degree. Now that Duncan plays a little bit more like Tyler, it's like, okay, can he just do what Duncan's been doing? You're forcing Tyler to play in a way that he's not comfortable. He needs his rhythm. He needs the ball in his hands a certain number of times to be able to get going. And so I think that splitting, this is more about staggering than it is about the starting lineup, in my view. And Z Cloud says it. As long as Jimmy's engaged, which he wasn't to start the season, the Tyler thing shouldn't be an issue. And that's one of the things that I'm saying here is, for those who are critical of what Tyler was doing earlier in the year, I'll just say this. Who else was going to do it? I mean, Bam has been on an upward trajectory throughout the season. He's been consistent. His usage has been much higher than last year. But really, this was about a Jimmy thing. I mean, this was about Jimmy was not playing hard or particularly well early in the year. I mean, first he was out for the preseason. He didn't play well against Boston. He didn't play well against Milwaukee. And in both of those games, if Tyler doesn't play the way he's playing, they had no chance in those games. So I just would ask everybody to temper. I mean, look, this is not a Jordan Poole situation, okay? This is not a guy who's going out there with 30 points, 1 rebound and 1 assist, and then the next night he's shooting 28% from the field, and he's ignoring teammates in the huddle. This is just a guy who happens to need to play a certain way to be at his highest level, but was giving you reasonably efficient numbers with reps. So I don't think asking Tyler to change everything that he does is the way to do this. I think it's just getting Tyler on the floor with some other players. Kane's on a heater. Will Spo give him a shot? I think he might, but Alex, he's just got too many bodies right now. How much has Love helped Duncan? A lot, actually. We walked in the locker room the other day. I tweeted about this, and he came in, and Love was shouting that Duncan's life changed when Kevin started sitting next to him in the plane. I think Kevin has taken a lot of that UD role. I think Kevin has a very good sense of people.
Yeah, I
I'll say
agree.
this. I didn't like Kevin that much when I covered the Cavs in 2014, 2015. He was kind of, he had his surly star thing. I think he was upset about, the way LeBron was kind of the way the whole thing was playing out. Cleveland fit in, fit out. David Blatt is the coach. I didn't get to know Kevin at all, and I was up there for most of the year. He's been wonderful since he's come down. Like he has total perspective on his career, on his role. And he's brought a total different energy to that locker room. And I think he's been great for Duncan, honestly. Like I didn't put those things together previously that he'd been working with Duncan so much, but it makes sense now. When you look at the way that Duncan has kind of come out of his shell here a little bit, and I know people always get on me about the whole alpha thing, but this is the most alpha Duncan we've ever seen. And I do believe Kevin has helped with that. Look, Kevin was very close with Strus. Now the Strus is not there. Kevin was always with Strus. You would always see him with Max. And it'll be interesting to see what that looks like tonight. Is K-Love helping Jovic? Yes, I've spoken to Kevin a lot about Jovic. There's similarities there in their games. I talked to Jovic about what he wants to take from Kevin. So, yes, for sure. And, Jen, just to remind, we're going to, I guess, Eternal and everybody going to be watching. I might be there as well. The Sioux Falls game tonight that Jovic is in. So make sure you check that out. From Ryan, Jaime is a definition of why it's important to have picks. Dude is going to make $6 million in 2026 season for a $9 million qualifying offer.
Wow.
Cost control contracts like this are the key to making it work. Exactly. Same with Highsmith. Different route, obviously, but they're going to have a couple of core rotation players and possible starters making sub 8 figures per year. That's a huge thing. This one yes. And yes, Jimmy's on track for a 50, 40, 90 season. I'm not expecting the 40 to hold, but we'll see.
I think it will, though, Ethan. I think it will. Then we lost Ethan right after he said that. That's crazy as hell. So that means it will hold. Continue dropping your questions in here. Ethan will get up here. He'll get back up here in a second. who apologized about the stream. I don't know what the fuck is going on with YouTube. And he's back.
I'll
He's back.
mention the stream thing because I don't know. It's been spinning for me a lot lately, also on the YouTube side. All right. Well, so since we don't have the full stream here today, we'll do the full breakdown another day. Let's just take 5 more questions. Me and Eternal, you jump in on a couple of these also. Don't worry
Yeah, I
about it.
will. Oh, well, you try it on your side because it might actually play from your side. I have it already queued up. If you try,
All right. Let me see. Let me see. We'll give this one shot. We'll see what happens here.
If you hit
Ethan, was Kobe White auditioning for Miami? I'm not sure. It looks like everybody in Chicago wants to be out of Chicago right now.
Listen, I will say this. Kobe White looked like he was auditioning. DeMar DeRozan looked like he was auditioning. Caruso looked like he was auditioning.
And Zach looked like he was on a hunger strike.
Nikola Vucevic looked like he was auditioning as well. All 4 of them had really good games. Zach was the only one that really did not look engaged the last 2 games.
And, well, I don't know what Zach's trying to do here because it reminded me a little bit. Although with Vic, he was hurt. When Vic wanted out of Indiana, it was very clear he wanted out of Indiana, and Zach has kind of stolen a page from that playbook. I think. But
I just saw that video that you've been referencing for like the last few seasons.
Which one about Vic?
Yeah, he was sitting there talking to Bam and DJJ, and then Jimmy walked over. That is some funny ass shit.
He was checked out for that series.
That's what shit you do after, like, when the cameras are not near, bro.
Right.
Like it's.
No, he was open about it. He was openly cheating right there in front of everybody. But Levine just is on a strike. There was no impact from his game whatsoever over the 2. Like that, nothing.
Did you see Zach's after they won on Saturday? Like he just bolted. The media later was trying to stop him so he could do on-court interviews. Don't.
Well, I don't feel bad about that because that media person, I won't mention her name, but is the only one who's denied us a road credential over the past couple of years. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for her. I was trying to get Siobhan in past couple of days.
And they won't do it.
No, she went on her own, but they wouldn't credential. All right, let me get to a couple more of the questions. I mean, she was like, "We're going to take a pass on this." That was her email. I was like, "Okay." This one from CJ Hero. Best part about Jaime is he compliments our top 4 players. Absolutely, Jimmy, Bam, Tyler, and Duncan are all playing well with him. Yeah, it's been immediate. You know what's funny is I had actually heard from people who represent those players that Jaime didn't look that good in like the open runs this summer. There was some concern about him. But it feels like he's just a gamer type. Like you plug him into moments that matter and he just suddenly learns how to play. Like I don't think he blew anybody away in those sessions. But he has since he's been playing with him during the season. Yes, Matt, we were doing a playback for Sioux Falls tonight. Ryan, how much do you see Caleb being worth on the open market this offseason? How much do you see us offering Haywood once he's extension eligible? I think Haywood gets offered pretty close to what Caleb got the last time, actually. I think they can budget for that. And as far as Caleb being worth, look, and Eternal's hit on this. I mean, he's got to show that he's totally healthy and that the rust's off first. So it's a strange thing because it actually helps the Heat keep him if he does not perform at a high level this year.
I wouldn't do it.
But we'll see what happens with that. Big Kev, our guy Big Kev. Big Kev, you lost to Alex in 2K the other night at Rock Esports.
Oh, damn, Ethan.
No, he beat Alex. I think he beat Alex, right? Throw this one in here, Kevin. I think he beat Alex, actually. Do you think this team believes in the current roster enough to not make a trade and wait on the buyout guys to improve the roster? Look. Well, first thing, we don't have to talk about it, Kevin. Sorry about that. I'll say this. They can get buyout guys because they're not in the second apron. So that helps. But they're always going to say they like the team. So we know how that goes. It's really just about trading Kyle. That's it. I mean, that's the one thing to discuss here. I'll throw this back at the chat. You ready? Everybody wanted Duncan traded, right?
Oh, Ethan. Oh, Ethan.
If you have an opportunity to upgrade the point guard position now and offload, because that's the word I always heard, offload Duncan's contract, but you can significantly upgrade the point guard position prior to February 9th. Do you do it at the cost of Duncan?
Oh wait, okay,
I'll
well
throw
hold
that in
on,
the chat. No.
hold on now, just hold up, okay. Just I'm not gonna say that, CJ, because that's kind of going way too far. But if you can have Duncan and Buddy Hield, that helps you a whole fucking lot. But Ethan, I would say if it's three players, again, I recognize these people are human, and I don't treat them as anything less than that. I just want to give that because I feel like too many times when we do transaction, we lose sight of that. Um, but I do think if you can move Kyle, Caleb, Thomas Bryant um, in a similar way that the Lakers did with Russ last year, with again, Kyle isn't playing bad. He just isn't, you know what I'm saying? Like he ain't Kyle
Right.
anymore. So if you can move off of Kyle and Caleb and Thomas Bryant, I think that you should be able to get relatively.
Well, it depends, Eternal, if the team that's trading for Kyle is a team that can actually use Kyle's skills or a team that is just taking him for the contract, right?
Right.
So you have to look around the NBA and say, okay, who can use a guy who can still be effective, maybe 15 to 20 minutes, can still shoot the three if he'll actually shoot it, and might be re-energized by going to another situation because it's clear that he hasn't been energized for the most part in Miami, right?
Right.
So how many teams are there that you can say he would really help? See, I think you look like Phil. Everybody talks about Philadelphia. Melton's playing well. They don't really need another point guard, right? Like, so you look around, you're like, okay, well, people talked about the Clippers. Well, obviously, there's a logjam there now, right? They're not doing it, unless they moved off of Westbrook to somewhere else. Yes, Utah did that with Russ, and they cut him. Well, there are teams that can do that, but I'm just saying, if you look around the NBA, I think Phoenix could use him because I think ultimately they're going to need someone once everybody's finally back. If that ever happens, they're going to need somebody to kind of orchestrate a little bit. And again, maybe Kyle will be energized, playing there. Who knows? But I think there's a limited number of teams, but then there's other teams. Could the Lakers use Kyle? Do they want to give Gabe back? Right now, let me ask this question on the chat too. If you could have Gabe back, but you lose Kyle, right now, people would feel more comfortable with Gabe, right?
I mean, yeah, they
Provided
would.
again that Gabe's knee recovers. Yeah, gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I personally would just like to say thank you to both of them and wish them the best elsewhere. You know, same with Caleb and Thomas Bryant.
You're saying to Duncan about Duncan?
No, listen, no. I
If you're
I
saying to
have
Duncan, you better get shooting back
right. No,
because
you
you
better
better
get like some all-time shooting back, which is why, like,
right.
if you're gonna get Buddy Hield, I would rather keep both of them because as we saw in the playoffs, having shooters that you can depend on is very, very valuable. And honestly, I say that off playback there, but I feel like if Miami can again turn those three players into impactful players, they don't have to be like world beaters, but if you can turn them into consistent players that you can count on, that would actually be pretty big for Miami. As we see that they have size, like we saw on the consistently this season when they have Josh, Jaime, and Duncan, and Jimmy, and Haywood, and Bam, and shit like that on the floor. They don't have anybody smaller than 6'5" on the
Well,
court.
that's a good point, and CJ Hero makes the point here. I don't want any more small guards. Switching everything with length is a recipe for success in the playoffs, and it feels like now Spo is coming around to it, right?
Whew, who knew? Having
Right.
tall,
Well,
skilled players in basketball.
it's the whole positional size thing, and that he got upset at me when I asked that question in training camp. But I think he got upset because it was something I said that Mike Malone had said, and I don't think Spo's a fan of Mike Malone's personally. It just doesn't seem like it from what I've heard.
Mm.
But that's what Mike Malone talked about. He talked about how they had positional size. I mean, that was the thing about Denver in the finals. Like they could switch. I mean, when you're switching out Aaron Gordon and he can defend out on the perimeter, they were able to protect Jovic, who's not a bad defender. Actually, he's fine. But they just had length at every position. I mean, and that's so even they bring Bruce Brown in, he had length too, for a so-called
And they don't
small
have a
guard.
small.
So
They don't have a small point guard either. Jamal Murray is 6'4".
right, so
So
it's that is an issue. And look, that's why it stands out so much with Kyle when they switch and he ends up, trying to guard someone 6'8" down there. Look, Haywood is positional size. You wouldn't put Haywood at power forward, but he doesn't mind guarding up. I mean, I discussed this with him the other day. Like, and he can guard.
I do have an interesting and proposition, but we'll save that and save that one as well. But I think the thing that makes it very unique about Denver, and like we talked about, just like the challenges that they can present, is that Aaron Gordon is an athletic, old school power forward, though. Like he has the size and the strength to play there, and the agility to guard like small forwards or guards and everything like that, while also playing.
He's a perfect fit for. He was a perfect fit for what they do. The other thing is, I mean, Minnesota has positional size.
Right? They have looked good. Like as much as we clown Minnesota, they have figured it out.
I'm surprised, honestly, because I'm not a fan of either Rudy or Cat's approach to the game, but the guard is such a dog that it may not matter.
Anthony Edwards is a game changer, and I think him like really buying into being a leader and not like, oh, like y'all can trade me, y'all can, whatever this fuck shit y'all got going on, just trade me. But he's really bought in, and I think that has affected the team. That doesn't mean that Cat can't still get traded this season, but I think for now, like what I had predicted last season is coming true this season. I felt like Minnesota would be world beaters during the regular season, and they would be questionable during the playoffs. But they have been a tough out for teams, Ethan. This team, and when you have all that size, and again they have Jaden McDaniels back, which is a really, really great 3-and-D. And now you have to deal with all that length, like in their front court, and Anthony Edwards is playing really great defense. So I don't know, man. Like, there are options around the league.
They feel to me like one move away, but they don't have a lot of pick assets because of the Gobert trade, which makes it difficult. But they could be a buyout option team, which they haven't typically been in the past. But I think the overall point is we're starting to see the return of positional size around the NBA at this stage.
Orlando is a good one too.
Orlando has it. Orlando just needs to consolidate that roster. But yes, they can play bigger. Banchero, Wagner, and all the rest of them. And I think that the Heat recognize that. I love the idea of Spo having at his disposal 4 or 5 Swiss Army knife wings. Like, to me, that is the next level for Spo. They've never really had that. Like, even during the LeBron Dwayne era, yes, they had 2 of the elite wings in NBA history, but they didn't have athletic wings off the bench. They typically, it was Mike Miller, who at that time he was an athlete, but not at that point, the back injury and everything else. Shane was everything, plug in, do everything guy, but not that. They haven't had this kind of versatility, switchability on the wings. Now you add that to Bam, who's essentially just a big wing. Okay, and then that's where you really are. I mean, they could go. With all these 6'8" guys, it reminds me a little. It's going to be before everybody's time, but like I remember, like Nolan Richardson at Arkansas used to they always had these wings. They could just switch everything and all the rest of this. I think it's what Toronto's been trying to build actually. Or Masai is a believer in this length and all that, but the Heat's wings are. I mean, they all do a little bit of everything. So the Cavs kicked it off with Larry Mobley and Allen, but then they got away from it. They traded.
They should have never made that trade for Donovan Mitchell. They should have never made.
Well, they're going to regret it when he goes. That's for sure. I mean, I think that's if he leaves, it turns out to be bad. You know what's funny about it too, is that the Knick fans regret it also because the deal there was they didn't want to give up Quentin Grimes, who does not have a free throw so far this season.
You know what else?
I saw Knicks fans complaining about that.
You know what else? As we talked about, what Miami could possibly pluck off of Chicago. I think really, if you're going to get off of Kyle and other guys that I mentioned, is going to require a multi-team trade, and that probably comes in January. Similar to what the Lakers did with when they acquired Rui in the early part of January, um, or when Philadelphia the previous season, I think it was January when they acquired James Harden. So we could see a trade from Miami, um, maybe in January because the team, like you said, is so deep in the wing position. I wouldn't touch that outside of Caleb because you have Jamal Cain playing really well in the Sky Forces, and he's at the end of your bench. And if you need him,
Yep.
you can plug him in. But I do think at the 1 and the 5 position where you're not really getting anything out of them outside of like Kevin Love, like you could make a move there where that's the only thing that you need to kind of propel the team. And I think you got Caruso who looked really really good. Kobe White looked good. I If you could get Vucevic, I know Alex doesn't like the contract, but if you get off of Kyle, then you
And
have
yeah, there's you can swap it a little bit. I think that their desperate need, as we've discussed, for a 1 or an additional 5, some of it is mitigated as Spo tweaks roles here. So if Hawkins is going to have the ball in his hands more often, you don't need as many traditional point guard minutes, particularly if you've got they have so many guys who can bring the ball up. But I think ultimately, as they go forward, I think the key thing here is everybody's talking about what point guard are they going to get this year to plug the hole. I'm curious, what point guard are they going to go forward with beyond this season? Because obviously
right.
that's not going to be Kyle. And we haven't had that conversation. And I don't know that they would draft a point guard to plug in immediately. They have to find a 3 to 4 year solution at that position so that everybody can go to their natural roles. I think that's what we should be. I know everybody's focusing on, okay, and I get it. Okay, Monty Morris, look, to me, Tyus Jones would be a 3 year solution at that position. But like some of the guys that we're discussing may not be. And I'm saying I think their focus is beyond just, okay, what we can flip the Kyle contract for. And I know that's been a big focus of Greg's, etc. But I think it's ultimately who's going to be the guy next year and going forward to play point. And as we close here, because I got to run, and back on at 7 o'clock tonight, I put the feed. Get on Discord. We're almost at 250 on Discord right now. So we got the chats going there all day long now. So almost 250 members, tip-off members on there, which means you get access to everything. But, as we go forward here, we'll get into that topic a little bit more. I also, 7 o'clock tonight, Sioux Falls, watch Nico, because according to Eternal, that is the next starting point guard of the Miami Heat. And Jimmy seems to agree with him. So
Aha!
I got to go to a meeting. Eternal was right. Bye. We'll fix the streams.